Mr. Brian Cashman joins us now. Brian, it's Michael and Peter. How you doing today?
I'm good. You guys talking vintage T-shirts?
That's right.
That's
Peter,
right, Brian.
Peter has a vintage. He thinks he has a Fugazi vintage wrestling T-shirt.
That's right.
Right.
I don't know how to handle things in this matter, Mr. Cashman. Do you have any sort of vintage collections of anything? Brian?
I think he has a vintage phone.
Vintage players.
Wait, say it again. You're breaking up there.
I said people have accused me over the years of having a vintage roster.
Not anymore.
Not now.
Not anymore. All right,
well, we've been working at it.
That's a good jumping off point. Opening day is Sunday, so the first broad question is, how do you feel about this team? It's won a lot of games in spring training. People always say, well, spring training doesn't mean much, but I happen to think that on a young team, it's important to make winning a habit. What's your take on this big spring training?
Well, I mean, listen, it's nice to win your games down here, and I think it is important when you are, breaking in younger players, younger rosters, and creating momentum for their mental psyches to believe that they can actually compete at this level. So I think that's a benefit, but you also have to hand check it with a dose of reality. I just think that, especially if you're a deeper farm system, if you're deeper and better than others, it's usually going to impact your win column at the back of spring training games. And I think that's done that. So again, I think what this spring has done is continuing to reestablish the belief system around the game that, hey, the evaluators are seeing the same thing, which is this is a good young collection of talent that can perform, and it's impacted our win column. There's no doubt about it. And we've pulled out some games late because our talent could be and looks like it at times are better than maybe other teams are running out. Maybe 4A guys, that's their ceiling only, or part-time players. So it's exciting. It's nice, but ultimately, the bell's going to ring here soon enough, and people will be running out their real lineups and their best pitching for the entire game rather than partial games, which have happened down here. So you got to keep it in all perspective, but we're happy with what we've done. This is, if I could draw it up any better, this is the way I would have drawn it up, except for I would not have wanted to lose Didi Gregorius.
And that was my next question. So who is going to be the shortstop? It looks as if it's going to be Torreyes. You sent down Gleyber Torres before anybody could even, put pressure on the organization to have him do it. And then Tyler Wade got sent down yesterday. A lot of people thought you might go with him. So what's the thought process on replacing Didi for a month?
Yeah, we did decide to, first we sent Gleyber Torres out, and we've covered that, 20 years old, hadn't been above A-ball yet, done everything exciting that we would want, and he's on the fast track. He's putting himself on the fast track, which is great. So his time will come. When it's going to be, who knows, but he's still got a few more boxes to check off. Tyler Wade had a good season at Double-A last year. Going to dip his toe at the AAA level now for the first time, so we felt that we would be best served if Ronald Torreyes would more likely man that position at the big league level at the time being. We still continue to explore if any outside options exist that because my job is always to look for something better than what we already have, but more likely than not, my gut is we would have Torreyes start at shortstop. And so then, our only decision left is, bench. Do we go with a guy like Cosma? Do we go with a Ref Snyder? Those type of things, as well as right field. What are we going to do at right field? And I think all those things will be decided by tomorrow at the latest.
It's interesting, Brian, because there's so many aspects to every decision, both Wade and Torres. If you decide to go that route, you'd have to get them on the 40-man roster, and you could lose a player you like. But I'm also wondering, because there's been some speculation out there, and I never remember the Yankees operating like this. Is it because you didn't want to start their arbitration clocks? Was that one of the reasons that they weren't going to be a shortstop for 30 days for you?
You talking about Gleyber?
Gleyber and Wade.
No. Two things. One, in terms of Gleyber's case, he turned, I think, 20 a month before camp opened.
Okay.
I mean, this guy is still, someone that, despite everything he's done, again, he's never played above A-ball. And, Michael, you've been covering us longer than I've been working for us, I think. That's how old you are.
Thanks. Good call.
and so at the end of the day, none of us has ever seen someone coming out of A-ball to the big league level and starting a major position, despite how good he really looks. So I think it's a safer play to have him go through the process. Has nothing to do with arbitration, clock time, and any of that nature. It doesn't filter in. That stuff could filter in, if they're knocking on the door, like AAA, I guess. But, and in Tyler Wade's case, he played Double-A, and he, obviously had a good year. I wouldn't say it was a great year, but he had a good year. He's an exciting young prospect. He's still finishing off his development. And so we felt we'd be best served and we would be in a position to get the best performance from Ronald Torreyes over the next 30 days, than obviously promoting Tyler Wade and starting, him and skipping a full level out of the chute. That's the only thing. It has nothing to do with arbitration at all.
Okay, what's going to come down to the decision? You said it'll probably be made by tomorrow. I know the organization really likes Aaron Hicks. The owner really likes Aaron Judge and said during the offseason Aaron Judge is going to be our right fielder. How will you make this decision? Because they both had good springs.
Yeah, I think ultimately, we've been having a lot of conversations. They've both played well, and ultimately, first things first, we need to inform players. We'll meet either today after the game or first thing tomorrow before the game, and then Joe will do the right thing and inform all parties involved, and then we'll declare it. But we've said it was an open competition. It's been an open competition. They both have had good springs, and it's time just to make a final call. And I think what Hal said over and over again, he'd like to see Judge, obviously if Judge earns it and wins it, and that's what I think Hal has been saying and has continued to say, but it doesn't preclude obviously someone coming in there and winning the job. And so at the end of the day, we're going to tick off who's going to be the fourth starter. We've already made that decision. We don't have to make the fifth starter decision yet. And then who's going to be the everyday right fielder. And then we're going to go through the motions of telling all parties involved. And then we'll obviously be able to talk about it publicly. So, I guess forgive me for, kicking the can down the road a little longer with being able to talk about it. But at the end of the day, hopefully we'll be making the right call and whoever earns the right out of the gate, plays well. And, and that's true of every position. So.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss something that I should have known. You have not announced the fourth starter yet, but you've made the decision.
Yeah, we've made the decision. We've actually informed the player, but Joe's going to make that announcement, and then, whenever it's convenient for him. So now, we're still evaluating the fifth slot. Montgomery went today, and
did okay again.
Yeah, I didn't see the game. I was at minor league camp. We had meetings all morning about the AAA, AA, single A, the two single A rosters from Charleston all the way up to Scranton, which took about 2.5 to 3 hours to go through, and then after that was concluded, it was about 12:45. So my staff all stayed back at minor league camp to watch our single A's rosters play out, and then and we've been watching on the box score, what it looks like the performance was, but I can't really speak to it because I didn't watch it.
Now, Joe announced yesterday that, as you just said, you're not going to need a fifth starter until, I believe, April 16th, if I'm correct, and you'll carry 8 pitchers in the bullpen. Will one of the pitchers in the bullpen, Brian, be the fifth starter, or would you rather keep the fifth starter starting away from the team?
The bottom line is we're not in a position to answer that yet.
Okay.
I think that without question, I think there's, a discussion that we still are having, whether you'd have, multiple long men in the bullpen or take advantage of the 3 days that you have in the first 11. And is that enough to have, a bullpen of a certain amount, but not necessarily length, because, guys are going to get an automatic day off the next day. So that's what we're playing around with, and we don't have a clear-cut answer on that. I know the way I'm leaning, and I know, there's been, I guess, a lot of discussion in the room about which way to go. You could send all the guys that are candidate for the fifth spot and just send them to AAA and allow them to take their next, I guess it's 2 starts before the 16th, and then make your decision then. Or you can take one of those guys, collapse them in your pen, and leave them there while the rest of them go down to compete for the fifth spot. taking into account how they performed already in spring training here at big league camp. So those are the things we're still wrestling with, and what's in our best interest, both short and long term. And that one is probably the final piece that's fuzzy.
Yankees Senior VP and GM Brian Cashman with us here on the Michael K. Show. You and your staff are so in tune with statistical analysis and things like that, Brian. So I'm wondering, are you liking the possibility of Gary Sanchez batting second, which gives him, over the course of a season, maybe 30 or 40 more at-bats? Do you like that? And does it bother you at all that it might take him out of an RBI opportunity in the first time up?
No, I do like that. And I think analytically, I think they like that. I think... I was taught by Gene Michael, and basically, Gene Michael's attitude was always, you get your best hitters the most at-bats, you possibly can. And so I think what Joe Girardi is trying to accomplish now is getting Greg Bird as well as Gary Sanchez as many at-bats in a 9-inning game as they possibly can get. They both look like, they're some of our best hitters, and they're both young and looks like they're ready to go. And so the way they've been performing. So I like it. I think all aspects of the operation, from the major league coaching staff to the analytics staff to the scouting staff, all see the same thing. So I think it's a benefit.
Are you surprised, after missing a full year and struggling in the Arizona Fall League, Brian, that Greg Bird has had such a great spring training?
No, I can't say surprised, because he looks like he did in 15, and he had always been our number one position player prospect in our system. Mm-hmm. And that was a system at the same time that he was playing with Gary Sanchez. They were both coming through the same system, and prior to the year where he popped up with us, he was our number one prospect. And so I think it's just a reestablishment or an exclamation point that I'm back, and I am the same guy despite having a year off, despite having a surgery. The Fall League was good to knock the rust off despite the lack of performance, but I've proved I'm healthy, and now I'm showing you I can continue to perform like I used to, and you shouldn't worry about me. So the surprise wouldn't be an accurate word. I'm happy it would be an accurate word. So it's nice to see him, reestablish that all that he was is still there.
Brian, last time I was down at camp, I guess it was about 10 days ago, I got a chance to talk privately with Joe Girardi, and even in private moments, as you know, I mean, we've both known him a very long time. He keeps his cards somewhat close to the vest. I have not seen him this optimistic in a long time. He doesn't care about any kind of predictions and any kind of over-under numbers. He feels really good about this team. Are you on the same wavelength as him?
I'm excited. I know we're going in the right direction, and I hope we get there. I hope the train moves faster than anybody would expect. But I'm cautiously optimistic. I know that I think we're going to score runs. I think we're going to be a much better run-producing team than we were last year. I think we should be anyway. And the pitching side is, the other half of the game, which is extremely important, and that's the one that we're still, trying to figure out. We could have more than enough, or it could be a struggle. It just depends on how these guys start to settle in and establish themselves, and that's important. That's the young guys in the back end, in combination with the veterans on the front end, with that we get everything we expect or should get out of the Tanakas, the Pinedas, and the Sabatias. So, there's always, I think, you'd ask anybody, there's always volatility and concern. Here today, gone tomorrow. You need your pitching to stay healthy and perform, and obviously, we have some guys that have not, established themselves at the big league level, currently competing for spots, whether it's the bullpen or the rotation, and we need not just those guys to step up, but we need the veterans to do what they need to do too. You don't have the luxury of just sitting back and worrying about this year. I mean, as the general manager, you have to think about 2018 and 19 and things like that. Is it a concern, Brian, that your top three pitchers, top three starters this year, all could be gone next year as free agents? Yeah, you keep your eye on that at the same time, and we have been proactive in trying to secure as much pitching and acquire as much pitching as we can, but it's not an easy get, and that's why it's that much more important for the kids that we are developing, whether it's the ones competing for the fifth spot between the Montgomery, Sessa Greens, Severinos of the world, as well as the next wave, whether it's, Chance Adams or Sheffield or whomever else you want to put into the mix from AA on up, to push themselves in the mix sooner than later. So it's a concern, and it's something we have our eye on, and we'll continue to work through it the best we possibly can. And if we find a match that makes enough sense to import something else, so be it. But if not, then we're going to go with what we got.
I think it was you that was quoted as saying this earlier this week, or maybe the end of last week, that you spoke with the coaching staff, and they all wanted Gleyber Torres to play shortstop in April. Was it tough to look them in the eye and say that's not going to happen because of the long-term future of this team?
No, I'm used to. There's everything that they were seeing would lead you to say those things.
Right.
I mean, their jobs and my jobs at times, can conflict a little bit, where you can see guys coming up the system and doing what they're doing, and you can you can make those comments, and I think their comments were backed up with his play. But again, I'm not ready to pull the ripcord on jumping from A ball all the way to the major league side. But if you were here every day, and I know you watch this, Michael, but I can understand why anybody would make that kind of recommendation. But at the same time, you got to, I have a job to do, and I think it pays for me to be a little bit more cautious, or pays for us. He's a high-end asset that I think has a chance to be here for a very long time, and I would rather play it safe than sorry by taking the wrong step. And if he's really that good, he'll be here sooner than later. But I'd rather him go for at least touching through some of these levels that he has yet to touch for this. In our case, it'd be the Eastern League and the International League before I start thinking about that. And that could come quick, and he might be here as early as this year. But I'd rather continue evaluating him. We've only had him here since late July, so that's August, and some playoff games in September for the Florida State League, and then the Arizona Fall League, where we weren't even – that's not our development system. It's a winter league that's obviously run by an entire industry, and now he's at his first major league camp. So there's a lot of firsts going on with this guy, and they're all been positive, but his first major league action, I think that'll come down the line, but it's not going to be this early.
All right, final thing. John Harper wrote in the Daily News on Sunday, a guy who's very well respected, that the Yankees didn't love what they saw of Clint Frazier, and he's kind of dropped a bit in your eyes. Is that true?
No, I love John Harper, but Clint Frazier's had a good big league camp. He actually performed. It was his first major league camp. He performed extremely well. Look at his numbers. And he's gone across the street, and I think the hair stuff that obviously was created, obviously I think in us being the Yankees and the hair policy, I think it clouds a lot of judgment. You got a lot of old-timers that have opinions and stuff like that, and, I'm not going to, John's an exceptional writer, and so whoever we talk to, but I can tell you this, he is a hard person. If somebody's calling me up to make trades, and I base my opinion based on all of our personnel's contributions, he's someone that's towards the top of our prospect list, so he would be a very hard get. So he's played better defensively down here for us. He played better offensively for us, because obviously he didn't play well out of the gate at AAA, his maiden voyage there. But he did play really well this spring, and his light is not dimming at all from our perspective. So,
and just lead me into one final question. Are you on board with the hair thing? Do you think it's ever going to change? Do you think that it's a viable rule in this day and age?
If I own the club, I could make decisions to make changes to that type of stuff if I so chose. I don't own this team, so I just enforce the rules that they wanted for us. So it's something that's very important to the Steinbrenner family. And going back, Clint Frazier, was in compliance with his hair, but it kept becoming such a story that he on his own decided, forget it, I'm going to just cut it, and he did. So I give him good credit, because I know when he grabbed me, he's like, I just don't want to be a distraction. I love my hair, and it's up, it's under the hat, no one can see it, but it's still being talked about. It just became something at times yeah, listen, this environment can create that, and I don't blame the media for it. It's just more like, all right, let's see, this could be a controversy. Let's talk about it to create the controversy, and we'll ask about it every day to everybody, and then it becomes a headache because it's a monotonous spring training, and so then I give him credit for proactively deciding, all right, you know what, it's becoming an issue even though it shouldn't be, and so he decided to make a further cut to his locks. So, I give him credit for that, and it's unfortunate, but hey, sometimes when you come to the Yankees, there's a lot more. It's a bigger, stage, and therefore you have to deal with a lot more extra stuff. And I think he tried to do the best he could with it, and at the end of the day, he decided to take more off to quiet down that type of non-baseball story.
Brian, good stuff. Good luck with the decisions you and Joe have to make over the next couple of hours, I guess, or days. And hopefully I'll see you in Atlanta on Friday.
Good deal. Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot.